All right, welcome back to the 64th episode of the podcast, The Unknown. My name is Michael Volpe. I live in Chicago, Illinois. That's in Cook County. And I write at michaelvolpe.substack.com. Richard Luthmann, Luthmann. He's near Fort Myers, Florida, and that's in Lee County, named after Robert Edward Lee. And Luthmann.substack.com, that's where he writes. And big political victory for Donald Trump, huge political defeat for Chuck Schumer, and some are saying that's a favorite of Damon Toll, one of my favorite Twitter accounts. Some are saying that this might be the end of Chuck Schumer, but I'm of course talking about the shutdown is past 40 days. I don't think it's really a victory for anyone because now Trump owns the longest shutdown in history, but it's not quite over. However, I do believe that they're going to vote on it today in the House, and that should put the end of the shutdown. But in the meantime, the Republicans got everything they wanted. Am I right?
No, the Republicans got a big problem here, I think, and that is the health care that got kicked down the road is the big monkey wrench. That's what started this whole thing in the first place, and that it's not resolved, and it's a ticking time bomb because most people don't realize what's going to happen to the healthcare premiums, come next year, and the fact is that you have a situation where the economic.
So then I think you are agreeing then with the Democrats that was a reason to shut down the government. That's what it sounds like.
No, I'm not agreeing with them. I'm thinking
well, that was the centerpiece of their argument for shutting down the government.
I'm not agreeing with it. I'm the biggest issue that they had. It's a minor loss right now as far as the battle goes. The big loser in this whole thing is Chuck Schumer. But I think the Republicans might win big in the short term, but they could lose big in the longer term. And here's how.
Right.
Chuck, let's say they run Chuck out of town.
All right. So first of all, can AOC beat Schumer in a Senate race?
Listen, I don't think it's going to get to that. Here's my point. I talked to people in New York politics about this already, and they're saying that if Chuck gets ousted, as the leader in the next little bit.
Well, all right. So is he going to get ousted? And
he might get ousted as the Senate
minority leader. Story out there that it's pretty close to him being ousted. That they caved.
And so think about this, Mike. Mike, you're Chuck Schumer, right? You're 80 years old. What do you have left? He might resign from the Senate,
if he's
opening
out
up a special election in New York State. That's what the people in New York
are telling. As the minority leader, possibly majority leader, depending on what happens in 2026, certainly there's no reason for him to stick around. Now, Nancy Pelosi did stick around as a member of the House for a while after being ousted, but that's her.
Let me tell you what I'm hearing from New York people.
As far as the ACA, let me explain. So I learned about this when I was looking for insurance for me and my son. So if you are relatively healthy, if you haven't had a heart attack, you haven't had cancer, you would buy insurance on the private market outside of the ACA marketplace, because that's where the insurance would be cheap for you. If you have a pre-existing condition like previous cancer, heart attack, something of that nature, that's why you go to the marketplace. Now, if you think about it, and the insurers are required, that's what the law says. You have to give people insurance. Even if they've had 25 heart attacks and they're about to die, you still have to give them insurance. Now, obviously, the premiums on those insurance are going to be high. So what the government does is it gives subsidies to at least make them somewhat reasonable, but still much higher than if you're healthy. Those are set to expire, I think, December 31st, 2025. And those premiums are going to just be enormous once there's no subsidy. And so that's what you're saying the Republicans are going to lose on. Am I right?
Yeah, I think in 2026, that's going to be a big issue. Trump has been on TV the last week saying gas was $4.50 a gallon, it's $2.50 a gallon. Look at all this, look at all that. But at the end of the day, there's going to be two issues that are going to be happening. One, you have elderly people or people with pre-existing conditions, like you said, that aren't going to be able to get health care, or they're going to be it's going to be superly prohibitively expensive, number one. And number two, you have all these young people that because the premiums are so high, they're going to go and not buy the insurance. Before, when you had the premiums that were
the young
subsidized.
the young people will be able to go into the private marketplace where there is no subsidy, but where the insurance is like what it's supposed to be. Like my insurance has gone up. It's over $500 a month now, just for me and my son. But it's not it's not that expensive if you don't have a pre-existing condition. But if you do, and there are plenty of people that do, this is I'm just thinking about it. If you have an insurance pool where everyone's had cancer and a heart attack, and that's who you're insuring, do you have any idea how significant the insurance?
Mike, what's happening is the younger people that are part of the pool, because it's a state-by-state marketplace. And so the younger people,
they are not part of the pool. They are in the private marketplace. They're not in the ACA. I'm telling you, I went through this. Both insurance agents.
You're missing a certain portion of the ACA that is fully subsidized or largely subsidized under earned income tax credits and under other parts. That's how they keep the economics of it down. So you have people that are low earners. They can be any age in that ACA pool. So that was the mooring part that kept it down, right? Mm-hmm. And in the states that are the biggest parts that have this, 75% are states that Trump won. So I think it's a miscalculation by the Republicans to not address this issue.
I'm going to go back to you. It sounds like you think that the Democrats should have shut down the government.
No, I don't think they should have shut down the government. I think what they did with the air traffic control and everything else was a problem. But I think the impetus issue that's there, right, was the issue about healthcare and the healthcare subsidy. It's like you're telling me, like, oh, Mike, you're telling me that they shouldn't have fought the Civil War. Well, the basic issue for the Civil War was slavery. I think they should have addressed the slavery issue. You know what? I think the Civil War was a good thing. Nobody would ever say that. Nobody would say, I think the shutdown was a good thing. That's like the most moronic statement ever,
All right. There was no way the Civil War was a confluence of events. There was a way.
So was the shutdown. The shutdown was a confluence to a lesser extent, but a confluence of economic issues and other issues.
All right. So, do we have a civil war in the conservative movement?
I think so. I think that it's being pinned up by the media even more.
So we talked a little bit about this last week about Tucker Carlson, that is, interviewed Nick Fuentes, the Groyper, the head of the Groypers, who's he's anti-everything. He's like Paul. Paul Boyne, that is, a guy we write about. He and Paul would get along. He hates everyone. Paul's older and more bitter. But by the way, do you know who Tucker interviewed a couple of days ago?
God, who?
I don't remember the guy's name, but this is a guy who claims that chemtrails are real, that the government manipulates the weather. So I don't know if flat Earth is next. That's what somebody
was
suggested.
Marjorie Taylor Greene in a wig?
Right. Yeah. Oh, Marjorie, she loved that interview. She was like, oh, finally, we're getting the truth out. All right. So after the Nick Fuentes thing, then Megyn hosted, I think both Ben Shapiro and Tucker at different times, I think. But anyway, so they both aired out their things. Tucker said he felt that Nick Fuentes is the biggest influence on young men. I'm not sure that's correct. I think they all, Tucker in particular, overestimate deliberately Fuentes' influence to justify interviewing him. I don't think his influence is that large, but Ben Shapiro also talked about Candace Owens and said, I don't know exactly what he said, how specific he was, but there is no doubt that Candace has suggested that Erica Kirk, in one way or another, because she's extremely vague in her suggestions, played a role in her husband's murder. And here is Megyn talking about what Ben said about Candace.
He said that Candace has been claiming Erica Kirk was behind the murder of Charlie, which I had not heard. And I was taken aback because that seems like something I would have heard. It's so crazy. And I have since learned it is not true. Candace has not made that claim. And in fact, I've now seen several clips of Candace specifically defending Erica Kirk and saying she would never make a claim like that about Erica, and that she is open-minded to other people at Turning Point. That's obvious. She's been making that point. I had heard that point, but she's specifically been defending Erica Kirk, and she's been saying she does not think that of Erica. And in fact, if you read her comments, she's under pressure to make comments about Erica. And so far, what I've seen,
I have no idea what she's saying there, but Erica knows everything. Seems to be implying that Erica Kirk is in some way or another involved in the murder. She's saying TPUSA is Charlie was betrayed by everyone. That you can throw her into that. She's implying that TPUSA is behind it. Erica Kirk is currently the CEO of TPUSA. This lady, Megyn Kelly, is bending over backwards to defend Candace Owens, as Candace Owens recklessly implies that just about everyone except for the actual assassin was responsible for killing Charlie Kirk. I have no idea why Megyn is doing this. Actually, I do. I goes back to my theory that what you want to do is be provocative, so your name is trending, so because it's social media, so that way that clip is played by everyone, so you're everywhere. That's really what this is going on. Same thing with Tucker. Same thing with Candace. Do you know that Candace acknowledged that she didn't read the indictment against the assassin? She doesn't know what she's like, he didn't do it, but she doesn't know what the government has said is the evidence that we believe that he did it. She's just so certain that the government is lying that there's no reason to read the indictment.
Yeah, there's a conservative civil war going on, Michael.
Right.
And but Megyn Kelly was never a conservative. That's the thing. And I think you're no. She's a centrist. And that's the thing.
She's hardcore conservative.
No, Mike.
She's hardcore conservative.
But Candace Owens
is
the real story.
Hardcore MAGA, actually. I don't know if she's hardcore conservative. I don't know what her stance is, because she challenge Trump? Does she challenge Trump on his?
And she leans a bit to the right. She's a moderate. That's what she is.
All right.
And so that's fine. You can. Okay, but the fact is, Candace Owens is batshit crazy. Okay,
right. I don't think she is. I think she understands the social media and the algorithms, and she leans into doing things that will get you noticed, so that your stuff gets out there.
Batshit crazy things. I mean, she doesn't mean she's batshit crazy. She might be crazy as a fox, but she says batshit crazy things for effect. And you can't take it seriously anymore, to the point where you cannot take
it's taken seriously
day to day or hour to hour or minute to minute seriously.
It's taken seriously if her podcasts are top 10. If millions of people are watching you or listening to you, or a combination thereof, then you're taken seriously. Obviously, people are taking her seriously. There's a lot of people in this country who think that the murder of Charlie Kirk was some sort of grand conspiracy. They will disagree on who's involved in the grand conspiracy. CIA, FBI, TPUSA, Mossad. I don't know. And by the way, you see how she's like.
Mike, you just mentioned.
I do know that Candace has suggested that TPUSA was in on it, but it's crazy to suggest that she also suggested Erica Kirk.
No, that's nuts. But she scattershotted around it. She tap danced around that statement. She didn't say that explicit statement, but she sure as hell, tap danced around it. Made her
Erica Kirk is TPUSA. She's the CEO. I mean, what are you trying to say? And by the way, but it's she does make this one crazy claim, but she doesn't go to this other crazy claim. No, she did. And she does what Francesca does, Candace, that is. She says things in a way that gives, and Tucker's good at this too. She says things vague enough that, I didn't say, I never said, you're right. There's no tweet where you said, I think Erica Kirk murdered her husband. But there is a tweet, she knows everything, which is like vague enough that it can mean anything. So yeah, no, you implied it. But in the law, like implying it can be a form of defamation. Am I right?
False light. Yeah,
false lights. So yeah, you're not getting away from it anyway. So I don't know where all of them get. And by the way, Megyn, practiced law for a while. I'm pretty sure she understands the difference. So the Abraham Accords are now 5 countries. When we talked before the show, I was wrong. It's not Azerbaijan, though. Trump is trying to get Azerbaijan. It's Kazakhstan.
The home of Borat.
The home of Borat. So when President Trump took office on January, whatever date, 2017, for his first term,
January 20th.
January 20th, 2 countries in the Middle East recognized Israel. When he left office, 6 countries, 4 new ones: UAE, Oman, Morocco, and one other one. I don't know if Kazakhstan would be considered part of the Middle East, but now you got a 5th country. As I predict still that Saudi Arabia will have a formal normalization of everything with Israel by the end of next year, by the end of 2026, which would be huge. Right now, they have an informal agreement, but that's not quite the same thing. They definitely, we don't mess with you, you don't mess with us. Do you know what was the extent of the involvement of Saudi Arabia in the Gaza war for about 2 years? Do you know what Saudi Arabia did for those 2 years?
What did they do?
I think they issued maybe 2 or 3 somewhat strongly worded press releases about how they were quite perturbed by the loss of innocent life in Gaza. That was it. Now, look, they might have been. I don't know if they covertly were sending money. That's possible. I don't think they would. No, Hamas, I think they're Sunni. So I think they're the same as Saudi Arabia. They might have been doing stuff covertly, but overtly they did almost nothing. They weren't even strongly worded. They were somewhat strongly worded. So they left Israel alone. But that's not the same thing as Al flying into Riyadh and flights coming from Riyadh to Israel. That's not the same thing as like chain in products being made in different countries. So that's what I expect to happen over the next year. And there will probably be other countries. This is, in my opinion, the biggest foreign policy legacy item for President Trump. It might be the biggest item, period, for him. If he does something more significant, that's a really big deal. But I think the Abraham Accords are very significant in and of itself. And he's put another country into that basket. And I think a lot more will join.
And your prediction is that Saudi Arabia will be a member of the Abraham Accords by what, next year?
By the end of next year, in a year and a couple of months.
Wow. That would be a real coup. That would be something that would be pretty amazing, actually. Yeah.
A lot of the countries that border it now are a part of it. So, and as I said, they're not opposed to it anymore. They're not opposed to Israel. The main reason that countries want to do this is because it helps everybody's economy, because they're trying to build wealth. And
that's the Trump doctrine, Michael. That's the Trump doctrine that was announced in Riyadh that says, you walk with America, walk with us, or walk alone, or stand alone. That's the Trump doctrine.
It's not that. You want
economic development. It's an economic development.
You want Israel to have its people vacation in your country. You want to be able to have your people vacation in Israel. Israel has a very burgeoning tech sector. There's a lot of tech companies that could add value to Saudi Arabian companies, and vice versa. There's a lot of trade opportunities. When you want your airlines to be able to fly into El Al in Israel, don't you want that? Don't you want El Al to fly into your country? Don't you want that? How much is your tourism, the hotels, all of the tourist sites? How much is that?
And economic goods, production of goods throughout the region.
So that's the main reason. And there was an article in 2019, I think, in The Guardian that explained it, that the younger people, then below 50, now some of them are over 50, they're done with all of the anti-Semitism. They just want a better life. They think that Israel can help with that, and they want to like take steps towards that, and enough of like the warmongering. We don't want to support warmongers. We want to support people who improve our lives economically primarily, and that's what the governments all over the Middle East have responded to. And I don't think that the government of Saudi Arabia is any different.
I think you're right, Mike, and that's the point. Economics are such an important driver, and you can see with the countries that are signing on, they're the ones that want the economic development. They're the ones that are looking to angle closer to, the United States and to, economic, development and prosperity for its people. That's really what it is.
Okay, so this is being reported everywhere. The Tricia McLaughlin is denying it, but it basically, if you parse the language, no one is necessarily disagreeing with anyone, but multiple media have reported that the main contingency of Border Patrol agents led by Gregory Bovino will leave Chicago as early as later this week. McLaughlin says we aren't leaving Chicago. The same media that reports that Border Patrol is leaving is saying, but there's going to be some presence, particularly ICE. So I don't think that contradicts each other. But do you think this was successful?
I think it was to a certain extent. They got people off the streets that they needed to. I think that you were saying.
So here, let me challenge you on that. So this one says 3,000 arrests. The last time we talked about it, they put out a number, it was 1,500, right? Now, at the time, I asked you how many were gang members, how many had felonies, how many had felonies in other countries, and you didn't know. And you know why you didn't know?
Because they didn't report it.
Correct. And I did reach out to DHS for more accurate breakdown, and they didn't respond to me. And I read a couple of other articles. Other people did that too. They didn't break that down. And I don't think you're going to get a more accurate breakdown. I don't think they'll tell you how many are Tren de Aragua, how many are MS-13, how many are charged and or convicted of rape, theft, any other crimes, because I don't know if they're tracking that, which suggests that not that many are. Now, ICE is taking credit for crime going down.
Okay.
Now, can I tell you how bogus that is?
How bogus is that, Michael? Please tell us.
Number one, you got 200 roughly of these CPP in there. There's 10,000 Chicago cops. Your 200 didn't cause anything. Second of all, crime goes down as it gets colder for obvious reasons. Crime was already going down before you got there, and you are providing stats that sit from the summer months to now close to the winter months. Crime has gone down even more. You're all manipulating data, as President Obama, former President Obama, said, like to say, there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. This is a great example of that. ICE had no effect on that. They arrested a lot of people. I don't know how many really bad people they arrested. I know they arrested some U.S. citizens. I know that at least one case, some guy didn't have his papers. They fined him $130. I know they're hated, including me, by almost everyone who lives in Chicago. And I know that this stuff is tough. This is kind of not exactly like Andrew Jackson's Trail of Tears, in that both President Trump and President Jackson felt that this move was necessary. President Jackson felt we had to move west, way west. We had to be aggressive west, and we were going to push people off the land by force if necessary. And the Trail of Tears came on, that there was a lot of pushback. Davy Crockett, you remember Davy Crockett? He was against it. The actual Davy Crockett, who was in the Congress, I think he was a representative. He was firmly against it. It was controversial, probably be controversial, but that the thinking from both presidents was that this was absolutely necessary, that we had to, in Trump's case, get rid of illegal immigrants. In President Jackson's case, that we had to aggressively go west. And I think it also will be something that will be debated for centuries. If you don't like Jackson, you point to it. If you like Jackson, you point to it. And I think it'll be kind of the same way with Trump in this.
I think that
hold on, before you go on, one other thing, the latest report, they are moving on, but they're going to come back stronger, possibly 4 times as many in March when it warms up.
I don't think you're giving enough credit to deterrence, in the sense that the same way that, you know, the daycares that you talk about, you know, because of Jack and everybody else was fearful of ICE operations. I think that criminals are fearful of ICE operations as well and adjust their behavior accordingly. So it might be 3,000 people that got picked up. Maybe only a fraction of that are the bad dudes, but a whole other bunch of the bad dudes got changed their behavior. Maybe they left Chicago. Maybe they went back to where they came from because of the operation itself. So you have to give deterrence credit.
All right. So this federal judge is drunk on power. Her name is Sarah Ellis. She thinks, there she is. Who appointed her?
I don't know, Michael, who appointed
President Obama. She's an Obama appointee.
Barack Hussein Obama.
She is, I think, drunk on power. However, she did find that Greg Bovino lied when he claimed that he did not, I think that when he deployed tear gas, it was because he was hit in the head. That in fact, when he was challenged on that in deposition, he said, no, that's not, no, video evidence. No, he did say that in deposition, but video evidence ultimately disproved that. She did come down very hard on all of them for their heavy-handed tactics. They have extremely heavy-handed tactics. The Trail of Tears, this is nothing compared to the Trail of Tears. So heavy-handed, you want heavy-handed, go look that up. But I don't think this helps. I think that the way that they behaved unnecessarily alienated a lot of people that could have been on your side. And now you're like 90% against you in the city of Chicago. And it didn't have to be that bad.
I have 2 observations. One, it's fundamentally different from the Trail of Tears because the Native Americans that were targeted by Jackson had done nothing wrong. The people that are being targeted by the Trump administration are technical violators of the law. That's one. Mm-hmm. But number 2, I think that you're 100% right about the evisceration of a lot of the inroads made with the Latino community, with the Hispanic population in the country. There are Hispanics that actually are full-fledged and deep-throated and shoulder in on the Trump stuff because they believe that their communities become safer, their opportunities become greater when the illegal people aren't there. A lot of them are connected to crime and cartels. But there's a whole other portion of the Hispanic population that believes that this is targeting or this is some type of situation that, you know, they like to call it racism. I don't think it's racism, but it's more, I think targeting is a better word. Because racism. They feel like they're targeted because of their
that's Hispanic. Racism. That's racism, and they've targeted a lot of citizens, a lot of born in the U.S. Hispanics. The numbers from the election in the governor's race, the exit polls put the Hispanic vote back to at the levels before 2024, about 2-1, whereas I think Trump got within 10%. So I think he lost a lot of the inroads. I don't think he's gonna. I can't predict the future. It's gonna be very hard for Republicans to bring that back because these.
And part of it's an economic issue too, Mike. And you know, you have the argument is that black and Hispanic populations are more susceptible to economic issues.
It's the economy, stupid. That's true. As the Raging Cajun once said, that's true. But the Hispanic communities feel like you targeted the Hispanic communities, and they feel under siege. These ICE guys, they like to crash their cars into people. They like to point their guns at people. They are thugs. They are viewed as thugs, and you are not going to change people's views on that. And the amount of negative press that this got is enormous. And it's not only in the mainstream media. And it's amazing how we have to clear the record. You just constantly clear the record. Well, you're not really clearing the record. You guys were thugs. You guys were pushing people. You were pointing guns. You were crashing into cars. You were running into daycares. The lady that they grabbed in the daycare, it looks like she's bad, but you ran into that daycare. You're running into Home Depots, Walmarts, grabbing people off the street. That was happening. The people who support this, you've got to wrap your arms around the kind of tactics that these guys were employing. And it was fine. Trump said we should do more. I don't think we've done enough. This to me looks like a lack of control in terms of operating procedure, that here's what you're limited in doing, here's what you can and can't do. I think from the top, do whatever you need to do, just arrest as many people as possible, and that's what they were doing.
Yeah, I think that
That's
it's going to become an issue in the midterms. I really do. I think. Listen, I support what the administration is doing. Okay, I support Trump is doing everything he said that he was going to do. He's keeping all his promises. The issue though becomes how people are reacting to it. And I think that it might need to be packaged a little bit better. I think Republicans might go out there they have to make the case for why this is necessary, or start to listen a little bit to concerns like you're voicing. So we'll see.
Okay. All right, hold on. I keep picking the wrong one. So we are done with the current events segment. We're going to skip what the hell's this week. Maybe
I want to speak on that, Michael. I think that why would we talk about what the hell's a YouTube show if YouTube isn't going to have you on their platform?
Right.
I think that it's a principled stance at this point to say, you know what? Why give more oxygen to that topic at this point?
Right. We'll cover it. There's always stuff to talk about with it, but we'll cover it. But
I'm geared up for Bear in court, and I'm going to go take Jeremy Helse's money. So when I take his money, we'll cover that. But we don't need to talk about it all the time at this point.
Right. He spiled a lot.
He shot himself in the foot, and Jeremy shot himself in the foot too by trying to do what he did to you. So when we get to court, he's going to lose all his money, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So you'll hear about it.
We'll see. He sues a lot of people. It's amazing that people think he's a swell guy. All right. So the woman right here, her name is Bailey Templeton. She is running for the Illinois House in the 94th district. And she started as an activist against Department of Children and Family Services, which is the equivalent of Child Protective Services. And so that's one of her core issues. And we interviewed her late last week. And I want to play about 3 minutes because you asked her about some of the legislation she would champion to fix the Department of Children and Family Services. So let's listen.
So let's see. So stay on this DCFS issue because I think it's the most important thing right now. The Auditor General found that there were widespread documentation gaps on the missing youth notifications. You want to run for to be a representative. What would you do to have greater accountability? What are the steps that you would take? What would you put into the law as opposed to giving immunity to bad actors? What would you do to be able to detect the bad actors?
Absolutely. Demanding third-party audits, maybe some job shadowing opportunities where people need to go in and watch how it's been released that interns are doing these investigations, taking children from homes when they're not even properly trained to do so. There needs to be so much oversight. These are our children. And also, one thing I've tried to do at a federal level is to change the definition of neglect. If we change the amount of children who are getting pulled into this system due to reasons like poverty or medical decision disagreements or, an upset ex that calls on you to the CPS, this is something that's very common when you talk to people. This is things that happen all the time, intentional false reporting and things like that. If we work on lowering the number of children that get removed, redirecting those funds to actually helping the child. At this moment, there is no incentive for family reunification, but there is a lot of financial incentive to adopt children to new homes. So what we would do, or what my idea would be, to go in there and kind of force them to change their policies with some laws, maybe reallocation of funds to make sure that we work on family preservation more than we work on family separation.
Okay, and what does your first bill, if you're elected, to protect the kids in care, what does it look like? And do you have any idea what the price tag would be?
I don't think it would be a price tag unless hands are in the wrong pockets, to be honest with you. Texas is working on a bill right now, and it's the childhood cancer bill. Basically, it states that the Department of Children and Family Services cannot get involved with a child's cancer care. That is up to the parent and the child. It is not up to a state agency to intervene in situations like that. I would like to adopt something like that here, or tackling the redefinition of neglect. We take out poverty. We take out medical decisions. We go after the real neglect on children. If the child doesn't have heat or food or what it needs in the home, we have paid more than enough money to redirect those funds to make sure they have what they need. That doesn't mean the parent doesn't love them. That means that we have a broken system and a broken economy that we need to fix.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think of the some of the solutions?
Well, my biggest concern about this whole thing, and you know this better than me, can someone like Bailey, who's smart, educated on the issues, has been on the front lines, what can she do in this Illinois machine? You know, that's the biggest thing. When the rubber hits the road, what is legislatively possible for someone like her if she goes in and she wins that seat to become a state rep? And I think she's talking about the right things. I think she knows the issues. We've been parroting about these issues forever. You know, we'd harping on them forever.
Now, what did you think of when I challenged her and I said, you know, some of these parents are giving kids some kind of enema to fix cancer, and they're unwilling to give them what is necessary. And, you know, she said that chemotherapy kills healthy people. You know, my dad had cancer 5 times when he was 59 the first time. Chemotherapy is what kept him alive until he was 82. So there are parents who are unwilling to give them the treatment that will save them. So
Michael, I think you stop it right
CPS
there.
just sit back? Well, you know, if you want to give them a milk enema and try to get rid of the cancer that way, it's not our place to intercede. Is that right?
Michael, you got to stop it right there. The issue is, you said it right there. Doctors care, right? As long as they have a doctor that will sign off on the care that they want to have and the choice that they made. Because if you get into this situation, you get into every situation. You know, there are issues like, and the biggest one, and we talked about it a little bit in the interview, abortion, right? Doesn't the left always say it's a decision between a woman and her doctor, and that nobody can come in, the government can't come in and tell you that? Well, this should be a situation between a family and their doctor. The doctors are there, they're regulated by the state, they hold licenses for a reason. And that is the beginning and the end. It's the alpha and the omega. You go to the doctor, and the doctor provides treatment, or, treatment plans, and the family accepts the treatment plans after consultation with the doctor. That's the answer to this question. It's a simple answer.
All right. I agree with you on that. The other headline is that through a Freedom of Information Act request, Bailey found out that in 2024, right there, 166 kids went missing from foster care in the state of Illinois. That is up from 1 in 2017, 16 in 2023, and that's all they'll say. And here's the best part. When Center Square did an article about it, DCFS said the numbers were not completely accurate, except she got the numbers from DCFS. So if they're not completely accurate, why'd you give them those numbers? Is that a big deal?
Michael, you cannot convince me unless you show me very, very strong evidence that this is not a situation of child sex trafficking. That's what this appears to be. This appears to be the foxes in the hen house. There's someone in DCFS or DCFS missed something really big, and children went missing. Children in the foster care system slipped through the cracks. And where do they get picked up? In these child sex rings. Okay, this is and if people don't understand what this is people that are criminals prostituting children to make money. That's what they're doing. The children become money makers for them. They become like slot machines. They become like anything else. This is probably the most heinous crime, one of the most heinous crimes you can have, because you have the child sex, the pedophilia, but you have these people that are putting these children out on the streets. And so if this is happening under the nose of DCFS, we have a right to know. And DCFS has to be proactive and say, okay, we're investigating this. Bring in the FBI or bring in the Illinois police, bring in somebody to figure out what the hell's going on. We have 166 children missing, and this was like the tip of the iceberg. It happened in Georgia, right? In Georgia had a big scandal about this a couple of years ago. Happened in Maryland. States have this problem, and Illinois
and
can't
there's a study that says,
put their head in the ground.
Right. There's a study that says almost 90% of kids who are sex trafficked come from the foster care system. I think now that what DCFS is trying to do is just look the other way until this story goes away, which may be an effective strategy, but they have a duty to explain why that number went from 1 in 2017 to 166 in 2024, and why it went from 16 to 166, and where these kids are, and how that number grew so big without anyone trying to figure out or stop it or curtail it. What was happening? How did that happen? And then if you say the numbers are not totally accurate, they don't say what that means. You're the ones who gave the numbers. She didn't pull that number from her butt. She did a Freedom of Information Act request from your agency. You're the ones who gave her that number. All right.
Michael, your boy, J.B. Pritzker, this is at his feet. Okay? Midway Blitz is done. Midway Blitz is done, right? At least for the next few months. This is the biggest issue, I think. This is children. This is the biggest issue, one of the biggest issues I think you could have.
It's been picked up, but it hasn't been picked up by a lot of places. But Washington Examiner, Center Square, a few other places. It has to get picked up by the Sun-Times, the Tribune, maybe the Chicago Reader, one of those places, and then it would be a big story. Okay, you wrote an article, Deaf Mom mega influencer, Tacy Tacky Belial fights violent felon ex in family court circus. What's going on in that article?
So Tacy Belial is a mom. She's an influencer too. She's got 4 million people that follow her. She's bigger than like Dinesh and some of these other people we've covered that are social media mega influencers. But she has a son, and that's her son Ryder right there we're looking at. And Ryder has a very rare childhood disease called Sanfilippo syndrome. And this is like a childhood Alzheimer's dementia type situation. It's terminal. And so he's at the point where you have pictures and videos of him walking around. He can no longer walk now. He's in a wheelchair. He's basically wheelchair bound. He's deteriorating quickly. And so this case started in Washington State. Okay, and Washington State was where they lived, and Tacy and her kids lived. She would have to drive 2 hours to get the care that Ryder needed to take care of him, and she's the full-time caretaker for her son. And so she says, okay, we found a place in Ohio we could move, and it will be right there. The care will be right there, and everything will be in good shape. And under Washington law, right, you go to family court, and you tell the father who they're not together, they're divorced. You tell the father who's a convicted felon, he's a convicted felon, child abuse, and a bunch of other things. You got 30 days to challenge us moving to Ohio. The kids live with me. I'm the caregiver. I'm the full-time caregiver of our child. I want to move to Ohio. I want to, be able to give him better care. He does not respond within the 30 days. Too bad. Game over. You lose. The kids are going there. That's where they need to go. Well, what happens? They move to Ohio, and all of a sudden, this idiot wakes up. Russell Belial wakes up, and he hires a scumbag lawyer. They run into the Washington State court.
All right. So that sounds a little bit like a story I did, Stephanie Shepard, where she wanted to move to Florida, told her ex-husband, he says yes, then he says no, lets her move to Florida, and then challenges it after she's moved to Florida. Now, in this case, is that what happened? After she moved to Ohio, he challenges it. And does he challenge it in Washington court?
He's challenging it in Washington court.
Yeah, so he's home teaming it. So now she's got to fight this thing from Ohio in Washington. He's got the home court.
While being the full-time caregiver of a disabled terminal child. It's the sickest thing I've ever heard. This guy, Russell, is sick. But beyond it, the lawyer, the lawyer's a sick bastard too. This is you can read some of the stuff that this guy Russell's done in the past. Okay, this is the warrant that was based, and he pled guilty to all this. So this is some of the stuff he did with
So
children.
I see some assaults. I see an
Assaults on
assault.
children. You know, he's just a bad dude. He kidnapped children. He's just not a nice person. He's not somebody that's gonna you want around the kids, and it's a good reason. Cassie doesn't have anywhere near the kids. Plus, he's not helping take care of his terminal child. You think about that? That's just disgusting too.
Right.
But
So is he claiming that she moved without his permission?
Yeah, they want.
Now,
to try to get
what
the
does the
children back
court
into
say?
Washington.
Well, hold on. Now she filed and he didn't respond.
She filed. 30 days. He didn't respond.
So what is the court saying about her filing and him not responding?
Here's what happened. Okay, and go down. You have this crazy judge. This is the court over there in Skagit County. Okay, and Washington. And so they run into the court. She runs to the court, Tassie, because she was worried about a domestic violence order. She's worried about Russell. As he's starting all this stuff, he's making threats. I'm going to come get the children. And he's in history of kidnapping. I'm going to come take the children myself in Ohio. I'm going to bring them back to Washington. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. She runs to the court, and his lawyer is waiting in the courthouse on the emergency hearing. It's supposed to be an ex parte hearing because of everything. She had to do it by Zoom because she's in Ohio. She zooms in. And the lawyer is asshole buddies with the judge, right? So the fix was in before it even started, okay? How are you supposed to go in to get an ex parte order, and then the guy's lawyer shows up? It's disgusting. So the judge's name is Haley Stevens, okay? And she basically was laughing through this whole thing. There was a Zoom call, and she was not taking it seriously. This is these children's lives. But I think she was really controlled by the lawyer. And go down, we'll show the lawyer.
We'll get there.
He's the scumbag lawyer. I asked him a few questions. I sent him an email earlier. We'll go down into the article a little further.
We'll get there. Keep explaining the story. We'll get there. Go ahead.
And so, well, actually, click the video. See what this mom does. This is the type of mega influencer video she does. This is the stuff.
You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine away.
All right, so she's doing it in sign language because she's deaf.
Right, she's documenting what's happening with her children. So all these videos. Now they get this order in Washington with the scumbag lawyer. Then they run over to Ohio and get Ohio lawyers to file a habeas corpus to seize the children in Ohio based on the bogus Washington order. So we asked this lawyer what the heck is going on. He hasn't responded. But what is this guy doing? What? First of all, what's the father doing? That's the absentee father, the felon, the violent felon. But then again, number two, what is this lawyer doing? He knows that the 30 days are over under the UCCJEA, and this is
what's the judge doing if the judge knows that he didn't respond? What's the judge doing?
The judge allowed it through. The judge said, "Oh no, we're going to have to."
It's similar. It's not the same. What happened? Stephanie Shepard is the woman out of Idaho, Ada County, where Boise is at. Her ex-husband knew she was moving. They had in the order. It said as long as both parties agree. She thought he did agree. Then he took it back, and then of course you have to parse through the back and forth to decide whether or not he really did or didn't agree. He waited until she moved and then filed something, knowing that she was going to move. So this is kind of the same thing. This guy lets her file it, doesn't do anything, waits until she moves, and then files something to say she moved without his permission. Am I right?
That's right. Now, here's the judge.
Listen, it's not exactly like the Idaho case, but it's similar.
Here's the attorney, Richard Cybrandy. So she goes in August, Cassie, and she tries to get the emergency protection order because of the history of domestic violence and kidnapping. And this guy's in there defending the abuser, and he's weaponizing the justice system against the abused. So that's what this guy has.
Listen, abusers abuse.
And the laws without notice, right? For a good reason. when you have a domestic violence fear or kidnapping fear, these type of domestic relations and child protection situations. How does this guy get in there?
Is this guy represents the father?
Yeah, that's the scumbag that represents the
Wait, now
abuser.
what is the father's name?
He's Russell Belial. And so I asked this guy a bunch of questions, and he hasn't responded, but the questions are there. We want to know
what... You asked him earlier today. Is it fair to do what you did? You asked him like a couple hours ago. You haven't given him a chance to respond.
If he's going to email me back, I told him on the very bottom. Go to the bottom of that email. It says,
you want him to read through the whole email.
Answers. We intend to go to press shortly. Do not receive your responses by press time. We'll incorporate them
into
a follow-up.
But is it fair to send him something and then publish like an hour later?
Yeah, because he's representing a scumbag. Yeah, it's very fair. Representing an abuser.
I think you got to give people 24 hours.
Hell with that. He can call me anytime. He knows where I am. He's a scumbag.
Right, well, you already got the article out. Now he has to challenge the article. You don't give him a chance to actually respond. All right. So are the kids still living with her, or what? Where is it?
They're with mom, but she's under duress now at this point.
Right. Now he's filed a habeas corpus. That means what? She's got to present the children in court.
Yeah, they want to seize the children, present the children, produce the body, habeas corpus. That's what it means.
Now, if you have a custody case in Washington State, how can you go to Ohio and demand this? Doesn't that violate jurisdiction? You've already got an action happening
to be able to fix this, right? And the problem is now, once they left Washington, the children leave Washington, the 30-day period's over, the jurisdiction of the Washington court should be done.
No, that's not correct. That's not correct. You got to live in Ohio for 6 months.
No, that's fine. But now the kids are there. They're situated. In this circumstance, the factor
he
that
filed in the proper
Michael,
place.
The
however,
factor
the
that
judge
outweighs everything is the care for the terminal child. Okay? Right. The care for the terminal child. That is the biggest fact in that case right there. This scumbag lawyer and the scumbag father is getting in the way of the child's care. And that's just sick.
All right. All right. We also interviewed Gil Gatch, who is a Republican state representative in South Carolina. We're going to talk about the whole interview, but I wanted to ask him about what he thought of the idea of having an ad hoc joint legislative committee on family court orders, which would be the exact same thing as Arizona, or name it whatever you want to name it, but an ad hoc joint legislative committee to examine family courts. And I was surprised by his answer. And one reason I was surprised is because they had an ad hoc joint legislative committee on judicial nominations. So I thought, he was like, well, we had that. That went well. But he answered in a surprising way. So let's watch. And this goes for maybe 10 minutes.
Deal with in my capacity as a leader or whatever. I'm obviously very passionate about the family court issue and judicial reform issue, but I don't recall that committee. I just don't recall that.
Do you think family court reform is such a pressing issue that a similar committee should be formed for reforming family court?
We have a family court law subcommittee of judiciary. It's not like an ad hoc committee to investigate. I would just like to get the change.
The difference is it's a special committee because the whatever issue they're looking at is so pressing that you form this special committee to investigate it. So do you think it's worthy of a special committee that the problem is so significant?
I mean, I'm not against that, but it just adds another layer and delay. I mean, I think that we can argue about this in the committee system that we have now. I mean, my bill never got a committee hearing. So, I mean, we haven't had the opportunity to talk about that particular bill. And some of the other bills that I had, some of the committee members weren't present when my bills were put. And there's several of my bills in family court that have been heard at the first subcommittee level that have not been voted on yet. I just think that going ahead and moving forward, I mean, because if you do an ad hoc committee, you're talking about like 6 months. I mean, I might not be elected again by the time, by the time we get done with the committee. You know what I mean? Like, I'd like to be able to argue this as soon as possible.
they've got them in two states. I think the reason they want to have them is because the issue is complex. So before you present any proposals for reform, you take a lot of testimony to see what the problem is. From those committee hearings, that's where they kept hearing about a year, 2 years, 3 years temporary orders. That's where they came up with the idea that a temporary order should actually be temporary, among other ideas. So that's the thought process is, before we come up with reforms, let's take a lot of testimony so we figure out what the problem is and what some of the forms are.
I mean, that's what the subcommittee and committee process is for. I mean, we don't need to have every bill. I mean, you'd be surprised, but the Public Utilities Committee is I chair the Energy Committee, which is called Public Utilities, and we had the South Carolina Energy Security Act that came through that. It's a very sensitive topic because we had the giant VC summer debacle that took place in 2017 about lots of people went to federal prison through fraud. It's nuclear energy combined with natural gas, demand side management, all kinds of SMRs, which are small modular nuclear reactors, and the pilot programs. Talk about complicated. I mean, I could bore you to tears for talking to you about it, but just because it was complicated and it was very nuanced didn't mean that we needed to have like an ad hoc committee.
What do you think of that argument? My read is he thinks that we have like a system in place in the legislature, and we don't need to have like special committees. That the system is fine. So why do we need to form an ad hoc committee? There is and I looked it up. He was right. It's domestic relations, not that is family court, but and that's Gil. He sent me that photo. He said the photo I had was a little old, but so what do you think of that argument? And he said, and he's right. Obviously, they can take testimony. Now, I talked to Mark Esquivel, who I went with him to. We were both in Idaho when I went to Idaho, and I went with him to court. And he said the most important thing about these ad hoc committees is the ability of parents to speak, to redress their government. Now, the regular committee can have parents testify, but not in the same numbers, not hundreds. And I think that's where Mark is centered at, that we have thousands of parents just in the state of South Carolina who have been wronged by the family courts, and as many of them as possible should be given a chance to address the legislature, to tell their stories, so it's on the record what happened to each parent. So what do you think about both of those arguments?
I think we have to go back to Mark Fincham, Rachel Ketchel, and Tammy Nichols and ask them about the ad hoc committees, because what Gil said was the ad hoc committee is only as good as who the chair is, in many ways, in the sense that, and I know that Fincham and Nichols were both at Bandy Lee's conference in D.C., and they both talked about all the great amount of data that they picked up, and maybe at the ad hoc committee is a better vehicle for picking up data, especially from the public, especially from the parents, but also from people like Bandy Lee and from others who testified there with great knowledge. But the question becomes, and we saw that the preliminary report from Arizona, and I will say, okay, it's a preliminary report, but it wasn't very specific. And so the question becomes, what's going to be done with all this fact collection? Is that where, Mike, we have to, I think, go back to Fincham and to Tammy Nichols and say, well, okay, fine, you did an ad hoc committee, you collected data, what's the agenda now? Because he's right, Gil Gatch is right in the sense that if you want a specific point of law or a specific legislative issue addressed, the subcommittee is the right place to go when you have that dish already baked. Right? They're baking the dish now in the ad hoc committee. They're trying to get all the issues together. They haven't fully formed what their points of law or legislative action are yet. They've talked about it, but it's not laser focused. I think Gil is correct when he says, go to the subcommittee when you have a fully baked and fully clear issue that you want to address. I think that Fincham and Nichols are right when they say, this is such a broad issue, we don't even know what we don't know, so it doesn't hurt for us to go find out as much as possible.
He's right, because he's already proposed. I think we flashed on the screen 7. He later, we interviewed him earlier in the week. Later that same day, he was part of a contingent that sponsored an equal shared parenting law. So at least 8 laws. He already has ideas for laws in place. So in his mind, what do we need to hold an ad hoc committee? I want to get bills in front of our legislature to get them through the process. Why would we slow it down for 6 months? So I see his point. I don't know if an ad hoc committee is necessary everywhere. But I think it's extremely important that you give hundreds of parents a chance to address the legislature so that the breadth of the problem is exposed. And I think Mark Escobar is right about that. So I do see worthiness of these ad hoc committees. But I see his point. I think he, because he didn't seem to really care that much about that ad hoc judicial nominations committee. And I think he sees it like, you guys, it's like a grandstanding issue. Let me latch onto a problem, create an ad hoc committee so I can I can preside over it and act like I'm uncovering a serious problem when we have a committee system already in place and we don't need that.
The issue is this. I think that I trust Mark Fincher and I think I trust Tammy Nichols, and I think I trust Rachel Cashel after speaking to them and seeing what they've done and researching them. I trust them to do the right thing here. The issue I think that Gil Gatch is saying is that what if we don't have somebody that is really reform minded and they get it just to get the press and to get the people in, and then they kill it in committee? You have an ad hoc committee. It's very easy to kill an ad hoc committee. You did all this research, and then you take forever to come up with recommendations, or you come up with the recommendations that aren't really that robust, or you come up with the recommendations that are going to fail. So there are a million ways to derail the process with an ad hoc committee. And I think Gil's point is correctly taken. I think it's better to have the ad hoc committee if you can trust the people who are on it. But I think
But he doesn't want to be on it. But he doesn't want to be on it.
But I think that in Gil's situation, when he can clearly identify the issues, I think that the standing subcommittees are the place to go to change the law, to put in new legislation, to have issues where you have the actual empirical evidence and you have the actual stuff in the law. I'm says it all the time. Show me the data. Show me the data. Show me the data. Show me the data. They were collecting data in Arizona. They're still collecting data in Idaho. They're collecting data in other places. I don't think Gil needs any more data to get the law changes that he wants. That's the difference.
He's got a lot of ideas. He doesn't need data because he's in the court system every day. He's an attorney. He doesn't just do family court, but his data is what he does every day as a lawyer. So that might be one way to look at it. But Mark Escobar was right. It's extremely important that a lot of parents get a chance to speak in front of the legislature so that everyone understands the breadth of the problem. So I do think that these committees, these special committees, are valuable. Maybe it's not the right thing for South Carolina, but as I said, I was hoping to get them into 10 states. I think we can still get them there. All right, so it's been a few months. You were worried you were going to be arrested. It doesn't look like you're going to be arrested anytime soon, but that's only because you have not set foot in the city of New York. Now, you found out what month was it? Was it August, September? When did you find out that there was some sort of a warrant?
It was back in July. The timeline of this story is very
all right. So back in July, your attorney, who really is Arthur Aidala, who represented you, was informed that there was. I think he thought it was a warrant, but it really wasn't a warrant. There was something.
The warrant squad called him up. The warrant squad
called him up, but there was
Detective
no warrant.
Wilkinson from the warrant squad said that I had an I-card out from Arizona.
We
did a show on the I-card.
Remember
we did a show on this, Michael?
What is an I-card? What is an I-card?
An I-card is basically a BOLO or a person of interest that's put out by the New York City Police Department, the NYPD, that says we want to talk to this person, and we're probably going to arrest them because we made a determination that this person has committed a crime under exigent circumstances. That's the important part.
Right. Now, do you believe that I-card is still in place?
I know it's still in place. I have sources in
So
the NYPD that tell me it's still.
what do you think would happen if you were in New York City right now in Manhattan and a cop approached you and was able to get your ID? What do you think would happen?
Get hurt.
Do you think you'd be taken into custody?
Somebody's going to get hurt. So I'm going to leave it.
Somebody's going to get hurt.
It's
So really, the only because
I have a
these
natural right to defend myself against this stuff. Somebody will be hurt. Yeah.
all right. So these iCards lose effect outside of the New York City limits, so they're useless in Lee County,
You have
Florida.
to go to a judge. You have to go to a judge. The whole point to have an iCard is an exigent circumstance. Be on the lookout for this person. They're in New York City. They can cause harm to people. Blah 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 blah. This, if you look at that document.
Okay, so for those who weren't watching as it happened, how did this iCard come into play? What happened? Who's the alleged victim?
Attorney is Staten Island. Michael McMahon's a scumbag. He's corrupt. He collects double dips on pensions. He's as corrupt as the day is long. So is his scumbag wife. They're both scumbags, okay? They've hated me for years because I showed that they had dead people sign their petition signatures when he ran for district attorney, that he's just a crooked bastard. And so what he did was he subscribed to my media publication. This is for real, the one that we talked about, Luthmann.substack.com.
Luthmann.substack.com.
He subscribed to that after I and my media outlet showed that he was sweeping anti-Muslim violence under the rug on Staten Island. One of his political allies, Kevin Barry Love, the husband of City Councilwoman Camilla Hanks, right? She turns around and he's threatening Muslims. Okay, she's treating Muslims terribly in the office and violating their rights, making comments about them praying and all this other stuff. And so the Islamic Council turns around and it represents 93 mosques and sends letters. Don't go after this person. Don't do this, don't do that. Well, what are you people doing? You're anti-Islam. Well, I bring it to the district attorney, or I didn't do it, but my outlet did. Rick LaRiviere did. I didn't actually send the email directly to this guy. But then after that, his Ashley Owens and all those people in his office start monitoring what we're saying about his anti-Islamic attitude. Mike McMahon is the chief law enforcement officer. So then in July, and emails coming, he saw 83 emails, Mike McMahon did. He enjoyed 83 emails. On the 83rd email, which was a reposted email from my media outlet, not by me, but by Dr. Bandy Lee about corruption in New Jersey. Okay.
Wait. I think I'm missing.
Crazy.
Hold on. I think I'm missing something. Why? In what world would it matter if he was receiving emails? What crime did he say was being committed by him receiving emails from your media company? What crime could possibly be committed?
A protection order against me. All right, because he says he's the victim of a crime that I committed against him years ago for making a fake Facebook page about it. So because I engaged in First Amendment activity that's criminalized in the People's Republic of New York, there's a protective order which I was never served with. Okay, in these cases, and he says I violated the order by direct contact through an email from my media outlet, from the media outlet that I'm a part of. Okay, that bears my name. So that's the pretext. He said it was a felony situation because he says I was a stranger, unknown to him, that I was this, that, and the other thing. He lied. He perjured himself. He's a lying scumbag sack of crap. And he lied on that 3-page document. He has an attorney license that should get taken away. He should be thrown out as the district attorney. He lied. And so I'm telling Jessica Tisch, who is the NYPD commissioner, okay? She's there. Madami said he would consider keeping her on, but I don't think he's going to because she's Jewish and she's not going to stay on. But it's New York, and that's the way it's going to go. I asked her and the Corporation Counsel to take this stuff and throw out this iCard. There's no exigent circumstances. The address they had for me was the Brooklyn Metropolitan Detention Center, the federal lockup in Brooklyn. If I lived at the address they said, I'm a harm to nobody because I'm in jail. I'm not in jail. Detective Wilkinson said, oh, he's in Florida. He admitted it. I have an audio tape that's part of that tape admits it. He admits the whole conspiracy. I'm going to sue the ever-loving shit out of Michael McMahon in Florida because he's caused me a significant loss of liberty interest and great fear. I'm afraid these people like Bill and Hillary Clinton will do anything and say anything. Judy and Michael McMahon will do anything and say anything to keep their power, including murdering people. And I'm afraid that I'll be murdered by these people. I'm going to sue here in Florida at Mike McMahon personally because of his personal activities. But the city of New York has a very good chance to get out of this. And the Monell and an Article 78 proceeding against the NYPD for going along to get along with Mike McMahon. Mike McMahon is done. Okay, Mandami is in. It's a new day. And McMahon was a Cuomo Democrat. Okay, Camilla Hanks is a Cuomo Democrat. Okay, guess what? Mandami's going to offer those people up, that part of the Democratic Party up. And you know what? Trump is going to serve them because Trump wants corrupt Democratic New York City prosecutors. And Mike McMahon is on the top of the list, and he's got no protection because he's not with the Mandami wing of the Democratic Party. He's with the Cuomo wing, which is dying. And I wouldn't be surprised if a color of law and a RICO case gets brought against these people. I would not be surprised.
We'll see. I wish Trump cared as much when Republicans committed crimes as he does with Democrats. But be that as it may,